So last chapter, Arthur had a dream about his dad, where he had to collect bottles to like save his dad's life, and he ended up waking up right before anything bad happened, and also recently he found out that Mr. Hampton is dying of cancer, stomach cancer.
That's like the worst kind.
Yeah, it's not a good kind at all. Not that any kind of cancer is good, but definitely not stomach cancer.
Is there finger cancer?
I don't think so.
I think that's called arthritis.
Wait, I know that.
Is there finger cancer? That's the quote of the day.
Finger cancer called arthritis.
Okay.
Yeah, thigh cancer.
So now we're on 33. So he found out that he was sick and helped him.
My dog has breast cancer.
Oh.
Oh, dogs
Okay.
love boobies.
Can you close your computer?
They're teats.
Okay.
Yeah.
We are starting. So this is page 152. This is chapter 33. This is right after his dream. Monday wasn't a good day. After his miserable weekend, Arthur was in no mood for school. He drew circles on his notebook during most of his classes. By the time he got to lunch, he'd filled the entire front and back covers of his math notebook with aimless spirals. "What's wrong?" Squeak asked, giving Arthur a sideways look as he sat down next to him. "Nothing," Arthur snapped. He could see Squeak's eyes blink nervously behind his old man glasses, but he had to give the kid credit. He didn't move away. "Okay, just wondering." Silently, Squeak opened his brown lunch bag and got out his usual collection of foil-wrapped items. After unwrapping each one, he slid the foil squares toward Arthur, who didn't bother to pick them up. Top of 153. They stayed where Squeak left them, a lonely raft of foil in the middle of the cafeteria table. Squeak nibbled on a corner of his sandwich and eyed Arthur. "Not eating? Not hungry." "Okay," Squeak paused. "If you get hungry, you can have some of my lunch if you want it." "No thanks." As the silence continued, Arthur became aware of something hitting him in the back. At first he thought maybe he was imagining things. It was just a light tap, and when he looked over his shoulder, nobody was there. So he's feeling like a little something hitting him over and over.
It's the junk man saying help.
Well, he's at school, so I would hope the junk man wasn't there.
No, like it's like his spirit coming.
Oh God, he's not dead yet.
Turns around like a gun.
All right. Then he saw the piece of hot dog hit Squeak's back. Squeak was wearing one of his usual tucked-in shirts with a sweater vest. The piece of hot dog had mustard on it. A splat of yellowish brown was smeared on the back of Squeak's light blue vest. I just keep thinking about what you just said and like laughing in my head. Mr. Hampton's poking him. Ugh. Another piece of hot dog hit Arthur's neck and ricocheted onto the table. This wasn't the first time they'd been targets in the junior high cafeteria. Getting shoved in the food line or being called convict or juvie boy was about the worst it got for Arthur. Most 7th graders at Byrd still seemed to fear him a little bit, but Squeak got picked on nearly every day. Arthur sucked in his breath, feeling his fury boiling over. "That's it," he said. He grabbed the hot dog piece off the table and started to stand up. Top of 154. "Wait." Squeak put his hand on Arthur's arm to stop him. "Give me your notebook and pen." "What for?" Arthur turned his anger on Squeak. "Just let me handle it." But Squeak reached out and snatched the notebook that was sitting on top of Arthur's pile of books. Picking up a pen, he began writing something in large letters. Arthur couldn't see what it was. Squeak kept his arm over the page. It only took him a minute to finish his message, and then Arthur was shocked to see Squeak get up, put one knee on the shiny table, and scramble awkwardly onto it. So Squeak wrote like a message on a piece of paper, and now he's getting on top of the lunch table, like standing on top of it.
That's detention.
Then he stood up. "For crying out loud, Squeak, what are you doing?" Arthur called out. The noise in the large cafeteria gradually diminished as more and more kids noticed Squeak standing on the table in his blue vest, belted pants, and polished leather shoes. There was a lot of nervous laughter and, "What's he holding?" A couple of the gym teachers who supervised the cafeteria moved closer. Arthur couldn't see the sign, not from where he was sitting, so he's standing up on the lunch table, like all the way up. Everyone's like, what is he doing? Kids are looking at him. Administrators are like moving closer. He's got a sign. Arthur can't see it. "What the heck did you write?" he asked. "I'll tell you later," Squeak answered without moving. "Just finish your lunch." "I don't have a lunch," Arthur shot back. "Get down, Squeak, and stop acting like a moron." "I'm not sitting down until they stop throwing things at us." Top of 155. They've stopped. Well then, it's working, Squeak replied, still not budging. He held the notebook in front of him like a ridiculous shield. Vice, the dry cornstalk of an administrator, came strolling slowly toward their corner of the cafeteria. There was a collective cheer from the students who expected to see Squeak hauled off the table and led away. Arthur assumed Vice was walking slowly in the hopes that Squeak would jump off the table on his own. Squeak didn't get the message, so Vice is walking over to him as he's standing there with this notebook with his message, and he is not moving.
Busted.
"What are you holding, Reginald?" Vice said when he reached them. He squinted upward. It was probably the only time in Squeak's life he'd had someone looking up at him. Arthur couldn't help thinking. He tried not to smile. "A sign," Squeak answered calmly. "And what does the sign say, Reginald?" Vice asked slowly, although Arthur knew he could probably read it himself. "It says, 'Go ahead, throw things at me,'" Squeak answered, without looking down at the notebook that he still held in front of his puny chest. "Go ahead, throw things at me." Arthur felt a small glow of appreciation flicker inside him. He couldn't remember the last time someone had done something nice for him at school, not since way before his dad died. And here was Squeak, standing up on a table for him, trying to protect him. Wimpy, short little Squeak was standing up for Arthur Owens, a brick-throwing delinquent. You had to admire the kid. So he's like kind of
Get it.
taking a stand. He's just saying like, "Sure, go ahead, throw things at me. Like, I'll be the target. I'll take the target away from Arthur." So he's kind of taking the, taking the food being thrown at him for Arthur. Top of 156. "You know we don't stand on tables and hold up signs in this school." Vice kept talking quietly, as if he were a bottomless well of patience. Arthur was sure if it had been him standing on the table instead of Squeak, Vice would have called the police and had the table surrounded by cops, guns drawn. Squeak's glasses flashed in the artificial lights as he looked down stubbornly. "It's a free country. I have a right to free speech." "Not on a table in my cafeteria, you don't." "Doesn't say that in the Bill of Rights." "It says it in my Bill of Rights," Vice replied, still weirdly calm. With Vice and Squeak playing it so cool, Arthur could tell the cafeteria crowd was getting restless. Eventually, the people at the tables around them seemed to give up waiting for something to happen and went back to whatever they were doing before. The lunch noise returned to its previous level. Arthur kept staring up at Squeak with his arms crossed. Squeak kept standing. Arthur kept trying to pretend he was invisible. "You can eat my lunch if you want to, Arthur," Squeak said after another long minute or two had passed. "I don't want it." Arthur shook his head. "That's okay." Vice gave Arthur a suspicious look. "Did you put him up to this cute little trick, Mr. Owens?" he said, eyes narrowing. So this has like nothing to do with Arthur, and he's getting blamed for it. Top of 157. Before Arthur could get a word out, Squeak's voice answered indignantly from above. He did not. Arthur was relieved when the bell finally rang. Afterward, someone called for Vice over the loudspeaker, so he had to hurry away before he could give them a stern lecture. Squeak scrambled down from the tabletop and politely handed Arthur's notebook back to him. "Here." "Thanks," Arthur said hesitantly, "for doing that. You helped me last time. This time it was my turn." So kind of like payback for for Arthur helping Squeak out of that trash can situation where he was like surrounded by the jocks. Where am I? Squeak puffed up his shoulders proudly and gave one of those goofy, too wide grins. "I looked pretty tough up there, didn't I?" Arthur nodded. He didn't have the heart to tell Squeak that it would probably end badly. No doubt they'd get bombarded with even more hot dogs tomorrow. But he did let him know about the mustard. "They got stuff on your sweater," Arthur said. "You can't walk around the halls with mustard all over your back. Here, I'll help you get it off." He spit on a napkin and dabbed at the glob between Squeak's shoulder blades. Gross. It didn't make it disappear completely, but he got the worst of it off. So, cute little friendship developing between these two.
Love at first sight.
Aw, little bromance. So that was 32.